Welcome again to another episode of Dad Advice for You. Great to see you. I want to thank all you people for following us. Remember to check out our Instagram page. We have great advice and great things and tools on that as well. Today, very timely topic. We're going to talk about what happens when you get to an accident. What are some of the things that you should remember to do to make sure you protect yourself and the people in your car? It's really important to understand when you get to an accident, you are going into a little bit of a shock, depending on how hurt you may be. If you're not hurt, you're still a little nervous. The adrenaline is moving. And so sometimes you may not always be thinking to get all the information that you need. So we want to talk a little bit about what are some of the things you need to remember to do after you get to an accident. Again, great timing because this car right here was hit just a few days ago, got rear-ended by somebody, and we went through the same process of here's what you need to do to make sure you file your insurance claim correctly and that you get you reimbursed properly and fairly. So let's kick it off by John talking a little bit about what are some of the things you need to remember to do.
Yeah, so as Bob said, whether you've been in an accident or if you've never been in one, and when you get in one, either way, you're going to somewhat be in a little bit of a shock almost. You're just not going to remember things. There's insurance cards that you have in your glove box that sometimes they'll put on the back of things to remember to get when you're in an accident. But if your glove box is like mine, you're not going to find that. So first thing is, when an accident happens, make sure you're okay. And if you have passengers, it's your responsibility as a driver. Make sure they're okay. So that's first and foremost. After that, see if you're in a safe area, if your car is drivable and you can move out of the lane of traffic, just make sure you're looking, because that's when another accident sometimes happens. So try to get in a safe place. At that point, if it's okay to get out of the vehicle, again, make sure that there's not other types of obstacles or other cars coming. You got to be safe, because if you're on like a 2-lane highway, something like that, there may be some cars coming by that maybe aren't watching, things like that. So just make sure you've got to be safe.
And remember, if you can't move your car, get in your trunk, and hopefully if you watched our Dad Advice on your toolbox for your car, you've got a flare, and you get those flares out and start diverting traffic. That's really important.
Flares, triangles, it's good to warn other traffic. There's a lot of it's been proven there's other accidents happening because there's there's people watching and they're not watching what they're supposed to be watching, the traffic. So we're at that point, if you have passengers, they're okay, you're okay, you're off and you're out of the car and you're in a safe place. At that point, now it's your job to get information from the other driver. Obviously, you're going to want to make sure they're okay as well. But at that point, then you need to share some information with them, driver's license, insurance card. But at the same time, you need to get that from them. And it's easy to forget these things. So I know if you're like my kids, y'all have cell phones and they have cameras on them. Best thing to do is start taking photos. The photos is worth 1,000 words.
You can photo the insurance card, the driver's front and back of the driver's license, because if they have a new address, sometimes you stick that on the back. So front and back. Take a photograph of the scene. Take a photograph of the street sign, so you know exactly what street you were on.
A road like that. You know, because it's funny too, because you see people, they're nervous and they can barely write. There's no need to write anything, really. It's if you have your camera, or if maybe, again, one of your passengers can maybe take some pictures too of the area. The other thing to look for is if there was any witnesses. It's great if you can get their names and get them to give you a statement. Maybe you don't get a statement right then, but an insurance company would probably call them. But just get their information. I think that's the biggest part of it. And, you know, if we talked about if it's drivable at that point, you know, maybe you can drive it away, but if it's not, you're going to have to call it a tow truck. So that may have to go through your insurance company. I'm not sure. Bob would tell you probably a little bit more about that. But at the same time, make sure that you have your valuables out of your car. I mean, that's just kind of common sense. But sometimes in the heat of the moment, people forget those things.
Right. So now you've got the information. Let's just assume, like in this particular case, the person was able to drive away. You want to make sure that you follow your state laws. They vary from state to state, but probably reporting it to the DMV is very important. Even calling the police and getting a police report. Those kind of things may seem like you don't need to do that, but if the claim is disputed at some point and you don't have a police report, it's tough. But if you have a police report and you've reported your version of the story, that can go a long way.
That's right.
To proving your side of the story. So make sure you get that police report.
One thing about we didn't mention 911 and calling them. A lot of places in the state we live in, they don't really require you call, and unless there's, you're out in the street and you can't move the car. A lot of times they won't even come out. But I think a good rule of thumb is you can call them, and they can decide if they want to come out, and at least you've called. Or if at any point you feel like that maybe the other driver is being aggressive or something like that, my advice would be get on the phone to 911.
Absolutely.
Get the police out there. But
don't be afraid on that call. If you feel the other driver is being aggressive, tell the police, hey, we now have an aggressive situation. I'm fearing I have a safety issue now.
Right.
That's going to get the police probably out there faster than if you don't do that.
And another thing, lawyers will tell you this: never admit fault. So you don't need to say, "Oh my gosh, it was my fault." Just make sure everyone's is okay, and then just get the information.
Absolutely.
But you don't need to tell them any more than that.
Even if you were at fault, you don't have to tell the person you were at fault. Let the insurance companies deal with it.
That out.
That's why you buy insurance, is to make sure they will take care of all that. Now, once you've gone through that process, you've filed the claim. Depending on which insurance company and who's at fault, ultimately, insurance company is going to determine who's at fault based on the facts. Then you start the negotiation of getting the car repaired. I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but there's a couple things to be aware of. You can take your car to any body shop you want. Insurance companies, though, often will give you some benefits in that they will say, if you take it to one of these body shops that are approved by our insurance company, you'll get a rental car, and we will guarantee the repairs for as long as you own the car. If you take it to a body shop that's not approved, then it's going to be the body shop's guarantee, which may not be that much. So just something like that to think about. Ask your insurance company about that. In this case, believe it or not, this car was totaled. And so the owner of the car decided to negotiate with the insurance company and was able to get a very favorable negotiation to keep the car and to collect basically an actual cash value for the car. In that case, and if you do that, remember, your title is going to become a salvage title. And so when you go to sell the car, like this car is drivable, but if you go to sell the car, it's going to have a salvage title on it, so you just need to be aware of that. Anything else you want to talk about today on auto accidents?
No, I think the biggest thing is as we said, is just making sure you get some pictures and understand. My daughter was involved in an accident about a year ago. It wasn't her fault. Someone else ran a stop sign, but it took a year of fighting with the other person's insurance company to get a fair settlement, and it really it would have probably helped had she had a little more information, especially that the other driver admitted fault, but the insurance company didn't seem to care about that. So just be prepared. It could get a little bit ugly when you're dealing with insurance companies. I hate to say that, but
he's right. He's right.
But I guess you can. What my mom and dad told me a couple times, I think my brother-in-law here told me when I've been in some accidents, like, at least you're okay and you're alive. So just sometimes you have to thank God for those kinds of things. A car can be repaired and get another car.
Yeah, absolutely.